Thank you so much for joining us for today's message. We believe God is actively working in your life. We would love to hear about all that He is doing. If you feel led, please take a second to share your story with us at amen@freedomchurch.sc. If you would like to partner with our ministry financially, you can do so by joining freedomchurch.sc/give and just select the giving option that works best for you. Thanks again for joining us. We hope you enjoy today's message.
A little bit of history over this way. I taught at Berkeley High School back around 78, 79, 80, somewhere in there. And so I think it's really cool what God's up to. Just to tell you how to listen to me, I'm a little different. I hope you have notes. Do you have the notes down there, by the way? I'm going to throw a lot of stuff at you. But when the dust settles at the end, all I'm looking for is one thing. You're going to have kind of a multiple choice, sort of, at the end, and all you need to do is pick one thing that you're going to walk out of here with. What's different about, like, your pastor and myself? I can't build a church like this. That's just not what I'm called to do, not what I'm wired to do. I really, from the time I met the Lord 41 years ago, my wife and I have been married 41 years, and I got saved a month after we got married. Obviously, there's a story to that. But from the time I got saved, I was just drawn to, I'm not what you would kind of call an evangelist. I work at Seacoast, so I love our passion for reaching the community around us. I love your all's passion for reaching the community. But that's not really what winds my clock. What winds my clock is growing. And here's kind of a key thing to me. They've done studies, and they find that it's unfortunately not strong statistics for people who start strong for God in their 20s to still be passionate for God in their 60s and 70s. And I think there's reasons for that. And I've been doing this, pastoring and counseling, for about 35 plus years. And I think I've learned some things. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of that today. Because how many of you think, number one, it would just be good for Jesus if we kind of maintain our passion and purpose that long? Say yes if you agree with that. And then here's, maybe I got that out of the way so we could be a little bit more selfish. The bottom line is you just live a cooler life. I mean, my wife and I often just kind of pinch ourselves that just the marriage that we have, just God's blessing. He's so good to us. And we kind of want that for everybody. So don't be freaked out by some of the stuff we're going to talk about. It'll land, hopefully, in a way that works well for you. Have you ever had a "how did I get here" moment? You ever driven your car into the driveway of your home, and as you're going to turn the ignition off, you kind of realize you don't remember anything about the drive? How many of you have ever had that happen? I mean, it's like, you're just like, I remember, I don't know why I remember this, but years ago, when my wife and I were first married, we were living over on James Island, and I used to have a motorcycle, had to sell it when we had our first child, but I resent her ever since. No, I'm kidding. I really don't. I'm kidding. But I remember one time pulling into the driveway on a motorcycle, and I had absolutely no recollection of the drive. I made all the right turns, stopped at all the traffic lights apparently, but I literally had no recollection of it. How in the world does that happen? Where you have this kind of like, how did I get here kind of a moment? Now, here's where it gets a little trickier or interesting. You ever had a "how did I get here" moment in a relationship that's really important to you? Like, you ever had in your marriage, where you were about a third of the way into an argument and you realize you were saying things and doing things that just you knew hurt the other person, and they were hurting you, and you were just like, how did we get here? Anybody know what that next word is? Again. How do we get here again? My wife, whatever, I can say this because she's so different now, but when we first got married, my wife had a shorter fuse, you know what I'm saying? And she had a critical mom, so she kind of was really particular about wanting to do things well and all that kind of stuff. So if I really would bring up almost anything, it was really, kind of, how many of you know what I mean when I say walking on eggshells? We got past it pretty early. But early in our marriage, I would just say, well, baby, could you maybe do that this way? And you'd have thought I just told her I, wanted a divorce or something. How many of you know what I mean when I say this? The triggering event was this big. The response was this big. Say yes if you know what I'm talking about. Well, that's what we kind of want to talk about today. How does that happen? How do we get in situations where we just have this, how did I get here moment? It might be anger. It might be some emotional cycle you get in. It could be pornography. It could be some area where you're just like, man, I was doing so well. How did I get here again? And that's kind of what I want to talk to you about. I had, look at in your notes, there's going to be blanks to fill in and all that. But really cool question because it makes you think differently than we sometimes think. Why do we repeat behavior that doesn't work? How many of you ever did something that didn't do what you meant for it to do, didn't achieve the result you wanted, and yet you did it again? How many of you have ever done that? How many of you did it again? You know what I'm saying? Whatever it might be, you do something to achieve an end, a result, and it doesn't get you the result you want, but for some reason you do it again. I was recently part of a meeting with Pastor Greg Surratt and a gentleman named Darren Patrick, and the three of us were ministering to other leaders. And I grew up with a dad good guy, generally speaking, but he was really not very good at expressing encouragement, affection, the I love yous and you're wonderful and all that kind of thing. And he had a phrase that kind of hurt me that he would use, and that was, you're lazy and you'll never amount to anything. Now, how many of you know if your father says that to you, it's going to land differently than some stranger on the street, right? So it affected me, and here's what made it kind of worse. I'm a pretty laid-back, relaxed guy. I mean, you give me an afternoon off, I'm not going to have a checklist of, oh, man, I can get all this done. I'm going to probably take a nap. I'm going to check and see what movies they're showing. I'm going to read a book. I'm going to say, no, baby, we ain't doing that. And in other words, I'm kind of laid back. So the people that have caused me, not a fair way to say it. The people to whom I've reacted the most negatively are strong, type A, driven leaders. So this meeting Pastor Greg and Darren and I were at was with leaders. And I really walked in a lot of healing in this area. I kind of figured out how it happened. But the bottom line is it came to my turn to share in this meeting. And here we are in the meeting, and we got these pastors there, and we want to kind of talk to them about being healthy and whatever. And Pastor Greg says, okay, Chip, share your stuff, And what I said was fine. But it all came out with anger and hurt and just a twist to it. And even while it was happening, I was thinking, dude, what are you doing? Now, what happened was somehow a succession of things had pushed some buttons in me, and something was coming up out of me different from how I had it planned. Look at this scripture in Romans chapter 7. What I don't understand about myself is that I decide one way, but then I act another. Can anybody say, oh, me to that one? I do things that I absolutely despise. So here I was, in a sense, saying, how did I get here? And unfortunately, the truth would be, again. So look at this next verse. Don't copy the behavior and customs of the world, but let God transform you. How many of you have at least one area of your life that you think God would still like to change? How many have at least one? Who wants to come up and share theirs? Who wants to come up and share somebody else's? Let me tell you some of Sean's. So, seriously, you just admitted there's things about you that God may still want to change. I want to talk to you about where you might be in that process. Don't copy the behavior and customs of the world, but let God transform you. How many of you know you're not going to get there if you're living like everybody around you? You're just not. It's not going to happen. Let God transform you into a new person. Say new one time. Into a new person by changing the way you, say it, by changing the way you think. Changing the way you think. So what's the focus of these and other scriptures? Our thoughts and our minds. Now, take your finger like this for me, please. Just be, good classroom. And I want you to search around and point to, where does thinking happen? Now think about it. The organ of your body that does the thinking is between your ears. It's a little 3 to 4 pound pile of mush, but it's phenomenally complicated, important. I mean, believe it or not, all the research they've done, nobody's really figured out how it does all that it does. And the longer I've been a counselor, the longer I've been a pastor, the longer I've worked with people on their issues and stuff, it has led me to study different things. And one of the things that I've been drawn to study the last 5 or so years is the brain, because it just seems like another frontier that we need to figure out. So if you look in your notes, it's that brain God gave you. Now, what am I trying to say? Part of why it's hard for you and I to change is because of the brain's designed to work and some of the work that it has to do. And that'll make more sense to you in just a minute. Right now, why can I walk, move my arms, and hopefully talk reasonably intelligently to you while I'm doing it? I can walk around, wave my arms, and still communicate in full sentences. Do I have to think to do this? What do you think? Yes or no? Most people will typically say no, but then you kind of like, so here's just a way to get you to think about it. Are you moving my arms right now? Is God moving my arms right now? Who's moving my arms? I am. Now, what we mean is, do I have to literally think to tell my hand to do that? It's kind of yes and no, but do I have to consciously think? So what's happened? Y'all love babies. I love babies. Not the first 6 months or so. They're just kind of blah. But I like them. I like them then too, but I really like them when they start getting to where I just love watching them. So you ever watched a baby and it doesn't even know that that's attached to him or her? And then they hadn't figured it out yet. And then eventually they figure out, oh, that's attached to me or something. And then they actually begin to figure out, I can actually move it. Wow, I'm doing that. And then they actually figure out I can use it to move things and pick up things and throw food off of my tray and all kinds of crazy stuff, right? Now, what's happening? Because eventually we can do all of that and not consciously think about it. Now, this sounds weird, I know, but listen, there's a method to the madness. What happens is, anytime you learn something new, say new, you have to use a very important, rare commodity. Look in your notes. The brain has a very limited amount of a very important resource, attention. So God designed your brain where it could deal with life, and one of the biggest jobs your brain does is manage its attention. We all know there's mental issues that we deal with in our culture that have to do with a person's ability to pay attention or not. And we have names for them and all that. But it's a big deal. How many of you have ever gone looking for a car and you figure out what car you want? Well, I want a red Ford Taurus. What do you see all the next week? Everywhere you look, you see red Ford Taurus. Now, they were there the week before. What changed? You consciously or not told your brain to notice, pay attention to red Ford Taurus. I was hurt by the most important male authority figure in my life. Guess what I told my brain? Be careful around male authority figures because they'll hurt you. And they won't appreciate you. And they won't accept you the way you are. Now, did I consciously think all that out? No? Well, eventually I did, but that's what helped me get free. What happened was it just became part of my lived reality that when I was around male authority figures, I felt inferior and insecure. Now, eventually, were they doing that to me? I was doing that to me. Eventually, they weren't making me uncomfortable. I was making me uncomfortable. Now, what did I just do? I switched from this to a more complicated, learned behavior. All right, look in your notes. Brain has limited resource called attention. So how does your brain handle the complexities of life? By building habits or subconscious scripts for different situations, behaviors, etc. What happens is anytime you're learning something new, you have to what? Think about it, which means you have to give it your what? Attention. So you give it your attention and you do it a little bit, and guess what? The more you do it, the less attention it requires. The more you do it, the less attention it requires. The more you do it, the less attention it requires. And then eventually it's dropped into this part of your brain that stores repetitive behavior. And how it works is different external events hit a button, and very quickly your storage shed there says, okay, in this situation, based on these qualities, this is the right response. Now, the problem is you learn those responses back when you had no control, no choice, and now you still respond out of some of the same programs, if you will, even though the situation is not what it was. In other words, what makes current behavior unhealthy is that you use it at a time when it maybe protected you, but you no longer need to be protected in the same way, yet you keep doing it. Say yes if that made sense. Okay, so what I want to talk to you about is what do we do with all this? When does the most important and powerful learning happen? I'm a counselor, you know where we're going. When does the most important learning happen? Throw that picture up there, please. I believe this. In childhood, the outside shapes the inside. In childhood, so many things are being learned, and I'm using it in quotes, and they're how I feel about myself. Do I matter? What do I have to do to feel valued and appreciated? What do I do that makes me feel rejected? Trust, fear, emotional expression, all kinds of things are going on. So in childhood, the outside environment shapes the inside. Next one, in adulthood, that inside, shaped in childhood, is what then shapes the outside. You and I make choices as we grow into adulthood based on what childhood put into us. I had a sense that I wasn't hardworking, I wasn't whatever, and consequently, I kind of had what we call a poverty spirit. What does that mean? I didn't believe I deserved to succeed. Because to succeed, I had learned this set of rules, right? So what I found was I would actually sabotage my own success. I would just do things. How many of you, something I've learned in counseling people is this: we'd rather be right than happy. I believed I didn't deserve to succeed. Guess what? I made sure I didn't. Until God taught me some of the stuff we're going to be looking at today and helped me start to understand why I felt that way, where it came from, who put it there, and what I could do about it. All right, we're going to look at a parable. Say yes if you're still here. You still here? Yes. We're going to look at one of Jesus's parables, one of my favorites. I love this parable. And it's just simple, so simple, but yet it's so powerful. I call it the parable of arrested development. And so much we could say about that. So Mark chapter 4, verse 1 through 8. He began to teach again by the sea, he being Jesus, and such a very loud crowd gathered to him that he got into a boat in the sea and sat down, and the whole crowd was by the sea on the land, and he was teaching. All right, let's get the picture because it'll help us understand the parable. If we think this open area up here is the beach, and this is the water, the stage, and you guys are the crowd. And what happens is the crowd just keeps building. So he gets in a boat and shifts out a little bit. But I want you to think now, picture that situation. Jesus in a boat talking to this crowd. And he's noticing up close, maybe little pockets here, there, and yonder. And then maybe there's a road that goes by where they are. And he sees people back there that are kind of listening but not listening. All right? Who is he going to talk to? Who's he going to talk to? Everybody there. Everybody there. Who else is he talking to? Everybody sitting here. And guess what he wanted to talk to them about that he still wants to talk to us about? I believe, remember the scene. You got people up close, you got this, that, and the other, and then you got people way over there at the periphery. And I believe he wanted to tell them a story that helps them figure out where they are and why they're stuck there. Where they are. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to read this story, and as we go through it, I want you to locate yourself. Locate yourself in this story. So he was teaching, verse 2, many things in parables, and was saying to them in his teaching, listen to this, behold, the sower went out to sow. As he was sowing, some seed fell beside the road, and the birds came and ate it up. Now imagine that. He's looking at people back there by the road. And he said, some seeds falling back there, but it's not landing real well. Other seed fell on rocky ground where it did not have much soil, and immediately it sprang up because it had no depth of soil. And after the sun had risen, it was scorched because it had no root. It withered away. So far, two soils, by the road and rocky. All right, that's two. Verse 7, other seed fell among the thorns, and the thorns came up and choked it, and it yielded no crop. 3 soils so far. How many of them ended well? None of them, not one. Other seed fell in good soil, and as they grew up and increased, they yielded a crop and produced 30, 60, 100-fold. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. So what I want us to do is talk about, go ahead and put the graph up here. I want us to talk about the 4 soils. Please remember, I want you to locate yourself as we talk through this, because where you locate yourself is going to determine the one thing you do as you leave here today. So by the roadside, this is the Chip Judd counselor / pastor version. I believe the people by the roadside didn't come to the meeting to get something intentionally, purposefully. They might have been passing by. They might have been invited by one of you, and they said, oh, I'm not going up front there with you. I'm going to stay back here. In other words, who knows why they're back there? But the bottom line is they're hearing the same message, but it doesn't really have a receptacle. They don't quite know what to do with it. And I think that could be people that are just overwhelmed with life, and they don't really see a connection between the gospel and all the cool stuff we talk about and their problems. And they may just be numb. Life's just rolled over them, and they don't have a clue where to start. The second group is rocky soil. Soil, by the way, is the heart. The seed is God's word, God's purpose. What would make a heart hard? I heard somebody say pain. Think about it. What makes a heart hard, crusted over, is pain. So the second group are people that have experienced pain. Now listen to me. Who hasn't experienced pain? Now, I'm not saying we're all the same. There's people probably in this room that have experienced horrible things. And there's some of us just, I would put mine on the other end of the scale. For me to say I had a horrible childhood would be just a pure lie. Now, did it affect me in negative ways? Yeah. Did it affect the enjoyment of life until God kind of helped me get in there? It surely did, but not to the degree that some people. But here's the key with rocky soil. I'm still affected by things from my past. I still make choices and respond in situations, and if I really slow down and process it, I can tell it's connected to things from my past. My guess would be that's most of us in the room, that there's still areas of our life that when current, present things bump us, we pull up out of past hurt and that's what determines our response. The third group, among the thorns, and if you remember correctly, Jesus later explained that the thorns are cares of the world, deceitfulness of riches, and lust for other things. So here's how I look at this. This is a group that's kind of doing better, but they're chasing stuff that ends up choking them. They're chasing stuff that ends up choking them. It might even be good stuff, but they're after things that end up hurting them. And then the last group is good soil, and don't make the other ones bad because this one's good, but good soil meaning that they're living life more effectively with some freedom from the past, some effectiveness at managing the present, and they're kind of making progress. And for me, that's what this whole thing's about. All right, I used to see these four as states of existence, like you're by the roadside, you're rocky soil. And I kind of almost unconsciously thought, well, you're just kind of stuck there. Now I've learned to see them as stages that we all go through in different areas of our life. So if you look in your notes, growth happens when we identify the state we are in now and see it as a stage in our journey toward becoming the healthiest, strongest version of the person God wants us to be. So in a sense, what I'm saying to you is what we want to do is learn how to turn the state we're in into a stage as we move through it. Here's what I know about you guys sitting here. I know Sean told me I could go to 2 o'clock today. So I know some of you guys are sitting here, and whether it's your marriage, whether it's your professional life, whether it's your health, whether it's whatever, you've plateaued or hit a wall, and you're not getting where you hope to go. I promise you, with all the humility, love, and kindness I can tell you, the greatest hindrances between you and what you want are inside of you, not outside. The greatest obstacles between you and what you want are inside of you. And occasionally what God's going to do is point one of them out. Ooh, you have an anger problem. You have a victim mindset problem. You have a whatever. And then he's going to say, in a sense, if you'll allow me, I want to help you grow through that. But what if we say no? What if we say no? And then here's what I end up seeing a year later, a decade later. We're sad and displeased with where our life is. And I bet money, if we could go back to a moment when God said, if you'll allow me to deal with this, you'll enjoy life to a degree you never thought you could. Almost everybody in this room, I would say this to you. You probably have one area of your life where you're hung up, and you're going to stay hung up to your dying breath unless you let God mess with it. And most of you, 51%, could tell me what it is right now. Most of you sitting here could tell me what it is. It's self-esteem, it's confidence, it's fear, whatever. So here's what I want you to do. We're going to look at this parable, and I want you to locate yourself. And then, wherever you located yourself, you're going to have a choice. So let's look at soul number one and the choice that goes with it. Soul number one's by the roadside. And here's the prescription. Take responsibility for where you are and how you got here. Take responsibility for where you are and how you got here. Well, I got here because of my wife. I got here because of my husband. I got here because of my father. I got here because of whatever. Look at the next statement. You may not be responsible for the way you are, but you are responsible for changing the way you are. It's funny when you do multiple services. I don't think I said this yet. Early life pain, can I give you a little secret? The truck that ran you over, not coming back to heal you. What does that mean? People that have hurt you can control you from the grave if you let them. But you need to understand, if they do, they're not the ones torturing you. You are. You've got to decide you're going to take responsibility. Next statement. Freedom and empowerment come from taking responsibility. Bondage and victimization from giving it away. Let me tell you something that's not in your notes, but you might want to write it down. No one is ever 100% responsible for where they are. Nobody is ever 100% responsible. But you are 100% responsible for your part of where you are. Say yes if that made sense. Well, I'm in an unhealthy relationship. Don't doubt it. But don't you dare think you don't have some responsibility. Now, here's the good news. If you have some responsibility, guess what you also have? Some power. And if you ever say, I can't ever be happy until this happens and it involves another person or another situation, you might as well just find you a good counselor and some good medication, because you're just going to be tired and worn out for the rest of your life. You can't tie your health, your freedom, your progress to another person's willingness to go with you or go before you. It just doesn't work that way. Last statement under this one: own your responses to life's challenges. You can't change other people, but you can change yourself so their behavior no longer works on you. It's kind of fun when you learn to do some of that. All right, soil number 2, rocky soil. Don't waste your pain. Don't waste your pain. How do we not waste pain? Learn from it. And what I mean by learn from it is figure out what it did to you and what it's caused these cycles within you, and how to develop healthier cycles. Look at the next statement. Use your present cycles to uncover past pain that still impacts your thoughts, feelings, and behavior. I mentioned to you about my wife, I think, at the beginning of the service, and some of the cycles we would get caught in. Even myself, what I'm talking about with leaders, when I began to understand why the event was this big, but my response was this big, when I began to understand it's because of things that happened way long ago, it gave me a way to begin to look at my responses and cycles. Next statement there: pulling our thoughts and feelings out of the unconscious autopilot and into present awareness. Remember what we said earlier? To learn anything new, you have to give it your attention. Well, I have an anger problem. Well, guess what? You need to start paying attention to what pushes your buttons. And why do I react that way? And what is it attached to? Why do I react to a certain kind of person a certain way? Why do I reach for certain things when I feel sad or depressed? You need to pay attention. Pulling your thoughts and feelings out of unconscious autopilot and into present awareness allows us to learn from them rather than be led by them. Soil number 3. Among the thorns, remember it was the cares of the world, deceitfulness of riches, and lust for other things. Don't choke on God's goodness. What do I mean by that? We start to get a little healthier, life's working a little better, and next thing you know, we're chasing all kinds of things around us. Don't allow, in your notes, don't allow the idols of the surrounding culture to drive your pace and priorities. How many times do you start a conversation or somebody else starts the conversation by telling you how busy they are, how tired they are? I'll get with the leader, and maybe that we'll start there. Man, I'm so busy. Man, I'm so whatever. And I'll say, sir, who set your schedule? Well, I got these big goals. I said, who set your goals? You understand what I'm saying? Well, I want to have this kind of house so I can. Most of us don't even have the so I can. We don't even touch the why. But why do we want some of the stuff we want that drives us so hard? I know it's un-American, but what if you just decided, you know what, if I could make this amount of money, I'm good. And what if you just kind of got there and you just took a chill pill? I'm just not going to live all stressed out. I believe a lot of our stress is self-induced by the choices that we make. An idol, look in your notes, an idol is anyone or anything that I use to meet a need that only God can meet. Part of why riches are deceitful is they promise to do things they can't do. A bigger house can't make you feel good about yourself. A sweet little car, which I happen to have one, but a sweet little car can't make you feel better about yourself. Rest and margin increase the brain's capacity to manage life's challenges. Stress and anxiety decrease it. Why is our culture in such a mess? Because we're all living so stressed out. These crazy little things keep us from ever disconnecting. Gosh, we could talk about so many things there. But here's the deal. Number 4. I hope you've located yourself. And number 4 is about the one thing. Good soil, this one thing I do. Philippians chapter 3. Brothers, I don't regard myself as having laid hold of it yet. In other words, I'm not there yet. But one thing, I'm telling you, with 35 plus years as a pastor and counselor, I'm telling you, if you locate yourself in one of these soils, do the prescription that fit it. Take responsibility. What was the other one? Don't waste your pain, learn from it, and don't let the blessings of God choke you. If you'll do that, pick one thing, forgetting what lies behind, reaching forward to what lies ahead, I press on toward the goal for the prize of the upward call of God in Christ Jesus. Let me just fill in these blanks for you. We tend to overestimate what can happen in a short period of time and underestimate what can happen in a longer. What does that mean? Well, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do this. And we think within a month we're going to feel whatever, and we don't. And we sort of give up. But the sad thing is, if we just hung in there in 3 months, 6 months, a year, you'd be blown away. You'd be blown away by what God does. Pick one thing, this is in your notes, pick one thing and focus on it until the people around you see results. One of the best things that can ever happen to you is your spouse or your kids or your friends or your coworkers say, dude, you're different, man. What's going on? And you can see the connection to something you and God have been working on. Last statement, think small, start small, and get big results. Just think of one thing. Just one thing attached to the soil you feel like you're in. And I would again say most of you are stuck in number 2, where past pain's still affecting you. And allow God to work there. Let me pray for you. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, sir. Father, thank you that you love us so much, that you've saved us. But thank you that saving us isn't just the forgiveness of sins or heaven when we die, but it's growth, progress, freedom, strength in this lifetime. And I pray for my friends in this room, my brothers and sisters in this room. Give them insight, revelation, perspective, and courage to look at themselves accurately and openly, non-judgmentally, and see where they are in these 4 stages of growth. Help them to find one thing and work on it until they're just different. They're just different. And we thank you for it, sir, in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.